All right, welcome everyone back to the Baklava broadcast here on a Saturday night, March 14th. This is J-Rod, and I am joined by my two fellow podcasters, Rahul and Kurt. We are also celebrating Pi Day, so Rahul, how many digits of pi can you reel off real quick?
I could do like 90 to 100.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Are you gonna verify them, or can I just start saying random numbers?
I just do it. Just give it your all.
Let's see. I can go to, let's see, 3.141592654, and that's pretty much all I know, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the amount I know too.
Yeah, it's not bad, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. And we also have Kurt in Houston. Kurt, how many pies have you eaten in the last month?
This is gonna sound bad, but I've probably had about 6 different pies.
Wow.
May I ask what kinds?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, on Friday at work, we got 2 pies, an apple
Ooh.
pie and it was like a Hershey's pie. So
Oh,
I
that
don't know, it
sounds
was pretty much
delicious.
just like super
Yum.
chocolatey and very good.
Dang.
Um, Other pies include cherry, strawberry, rhubarb,
Ooh.
blackberry,
Rhubarb is a
and
wild card.
Yeah, it
we
is.
get pie at work kind of often, kind of like a big thing. But in case
Wow.
you were wondering, I can name 100,000 digits of pi.
Wow.
So
Dang. I got
yeah,
time.
it's
Let's go. Let's do it.
how are you gonna verify?
I can also name 100,000, so I just want to verify that we have the same digits.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. 3.1415926535897932384626433884626433846
Yep.
35897932384626433832795028841971.
Right. Exactly. Right.
8419771.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. Good.
Nice.
I mean that's like 25. That's
No, it's a good. Yeah, it's a
just
good
so
sample
people know
size.
how legit.
Yeah.
So
Very nice.
yeah,
Nice.
we can thank Miss Rogers from that in 8th grade
Miss
geometry
Rogers. That was
when there was
terrible
like
because Miss Rogers was always pregnant every time it was Pie Day,
yeah.
so she would eat like 10 of the pies herself. Oh,
Girl
I
pie.
hope, yeah. I hope she's not listening. Sorry, Miss Rogers.
Love the boots.
Yeah. Right. All right, Johnny, get us started on some basketball, man.
Yeah, so speaking of good things like pie, I guess we can go into our usual Cavs recap. Looking back at the week that the Cavs had, they had 3 games against the West this week. We started off with Phoenix on Saturday, I believe, and we won that one by 10. We were up big, as well as the Dallas game, which was a very good game for the Cavaliers. All 48 minutes, basically, they dominated the Mavs, so that was good. And then finally, I was so mad. I was just really tired from work. I couldn't stay up for this game of the year, arguably what it's been called, with Kyrie just going off for 57 in the overtime win against the Spurs. So to start us off, I guess, Kurt, looking at these 3 games, maybe going a little more in depth with the Spurs game. I know you watched that pretty closely. Just give your thoughts and what do you see from the Cavs this week?
Yeah, well, not to rub it in, but the Spurs Cavs game, it was pretty incredible. Um, I wish it was as the earlier game on TNT so everyone could have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did not look good. We were down for most of the game, and it kind of looked like the Spurs were just gonna put the pedal to the metal and bury us. And all of a sudden, like not exactly sure what happened, but LeBron kept the crew nice and calm, hit a couple shots, and then kind of just deferred to Kyrie, and Kyrie did his thing. Also, Kawhi Leonard missed 2 free throws in a row at the end to give us a chance after we couldn't secure a defensive rebound. So it was pretty heart-jerking. Kind of thought the game was over several times at the end. And then, we got the ball with, I don't know, like 4.3 seconds left, I think. And Kyrie was just like, there were like 2 guys right on him. And somehow he got enough separation shot over them. And I could not believe it it was crazy. But after that, like when you make a shot like that at the end of the game, that's kind of like a heartbreaker for the Spurs. I'd say more times than not, the team that ties it up like that at the end goes on to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's very deflating, especially when the Spurs had the game locked up, and those 2 free throws at the end kind of gave it away. The door should have been completely shut. So, it was an awesome performance. It's good to see the guys like not giving up and keep fighting when things didn't look like they were going very well. So, that was it was a pretty good game to watch. And also, the only thing I have to say about the Suns game is a big shout out to James Jones for landing a trillion.
Nice.
Joe Harris actually, Mike Miller also had one, and Joe Harris would have had one also if he didn't have a turnover. So we almost had 3 trillions, 3 1-minute trillions. So
Wow.
Wow.
Big shout out to those guys for their contributions off the bench.
Excellent. Well, yeah, man, that game yesterday was nuts. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago, sorry. There was no game yesterday. I guess I'm a little nuts.
Yeah.
It was pretty sweet to watch. And I think one thing that Charles Barkley said that I really agreed with was that it was like not only like 4 or 6 of the top players in the game, but they're all guarding each other. So that was cool to watch.
Yeah.
Kyrie was on Tony Parker, and Tony Parker was kind of like handling Kyrie that first half. So it was nice to see Kyrie turn it up at the end there. And obviously LeBron and Kawhi is always a good matchup, and they treated that like it was Game 7. But yeah, just a good game. Like we were down 10 points with 2 minutes to go, and usually that pretty much means you're done, especially when you're playing San Antonio. And another cool fact I just heard is that that was the first game that San Antonio's lost in March since 2013.
They had 120 in a row, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's unbelievable. And it was a good week. I'm excited because one of my predictions actually came right. I said we'd be 3-0, and Cavs pulled it out on Thursday to make it happen. So I'd say the biggest win of the year for us. J-Rod, anything you want to throw in?
Yeah, just a few quick points. I mean, I didn't get to watch too much of the Cavs this week, but just taking a look at I guess some of the recaps and box scores of it. I see the Mavs game was very good to see us play a full 48 minutes of good basketball. I mean, we were up 30 and ended up winning by 30 like most of the game, so that was good. And then Kevin Love was kind of playing down low that game, and he played well. And then you kind of look at these top tier teams, and a lot of teams are starting to rest players and everything. And I think LeBron has kind of expressed that he needs to rest a little. But I think we should also rest Kevin Love for the rest of the regular season. I think we have like 15 games left or so, just to get his back. He's having trouble with his back, so right before the playoffs, I think he should rest up.
Yeah.
And I'm still a little concerned. I mean, our defense has obviously gotten better since the All-Star break and everything, but I think 2 areas we can still improve upon are our transition defense, and as well as on like teams that cut to the basket a lot. I've noticed we've actually given up like the 4th most points to teams that to players that cut to the basket. So it's kind of concerning if you're playing an offense that moves the ball really well and cuts a lot, which is the Hawks. So more than likely than not, we'll probably face them in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that's just a little concerning. I mean, obviously we did play very well this week, and I guess one other thing on offense is just sometimes it seems like there's, just one high screen set and then like everyone's just on the perimeter and like either waiting for LeBron or Kyrie to do their thing. And that's been evident because we've hoisted up like 58 three-pointers in the last two games. So, I mean, if we're not hitting our threes sometimes, or if like Kyrie or LeBron isn't playing in like a different world, that could be concerning too. And you look at the Spurs, and it took so much from Kyrie to come back from this game. So, I mean, the Spurs could score at will against us, and it's going to take better play on both ends, I think, to beat the Spurs in a 7-game series. But, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of nitpicking here with things we can improve upon, but overall it was a good week, and it's good to see the Cavs still rolling and everything. So,
And one
yeah.
thing I want to add to that
Yeah, go
is,
ahead.
as far as the offense goes, you can kind of still see, like, even though we won that game, how the Spurs, in a lot of ways, are still superior to us. Because a lot of times you'll still see that isolation basketball from LeBron or Kyrie, and that's kind of, it comes with talent. You think you can kind of just isolate on certain plays, and the ball stops moving, but you just don't see that with the Spurs at all. So once we get past that isolation basketball, I think we can really jump up to the next level as well. Also, is it bad that when you said we should rest Kevin Love for 15 games, I thought you were making a joke?
I did too.
Yeah. He's been struggling.
Sometimes I kind of forget he's out there, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really seem like he's making, like, for, what he's been known for, as far as, like, just being completely dominating down low and getting a bunch of rebounds. Sometimes he really just blends in as a completely pedestrian player, and I don't know if that's lack of opportunity to show off his skill set, or like the system we're running doesn't, fit his strengths at all. But like, it's really weird because I kind of just sometimes I forget he's on the team. To be quite honest,
Yeah.
I only notice him when he's making like a pretty poor effort on defense, which is very often. Like if somebody's driving to the lane, he's like the last man there. He almost never actually like jumps to try to contest anything. He kind of just stands there with like his arms up. So.
Yeah. And also, like, apparently David Blatt tried to sub Kevin Love into the game against San Antonio in overtime, and Love was already in the tunnle, and Mike Miller had to run and go get him. So I don't know what that means. Take it with a grain of salt.
Good.
Yeah, but it's
not good at all.
not a good sign. So, good stuff. Well, one guy who's doing slightly better than Kevin Love this year is Russell Westbrook, and I'm sure we're all familiar with his crazy stat line over the past 2 weeks. I think he got his fourth or fifth triple double, sixth yesterday, right? He got he just scraped his 10th rebound or whatever, so he got a 6th triple double. And with his success, a lot of people have brought up the idea of trading Kevin Durant. I know that sounds crazy at first, but with the way Russell Westbrook's playing, maybe it's not as crazy as it seems. So what do you guys think about that? Should the Thunder really consider trading Kevin Durant, or is that a bad idea? J-Rod, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this was brought up. I think some ESPN bozo like Tom Penn or something said this could be a possibility for like next season. And you look at Kevin Durant and the kind of rumors of him. I mean, he is a free agent in 2016 and everything. And I guess if you look at like Durant and Westbrook this year, when they have been on the floor, they're like plus 9.3 when they're both on the floor, and then they're also holding opponents to like top 3 in the league when both of them are on the floor. So I mean, in the limited time that they have played together this year, they have been very good. So I think he means too much to the organization. I mean, Sam Presti has kind of dismissed these rumors, saying it's ludicrous, and I think that they would only like consider this if like KD like expressed that he wanted out of OKC, and I think he enjoys playing for the Thunder and everything. So I mean, I get the idea that trading him, they could possibly get something in return before he actually like walks for possibly nothing. But yeah, I mean, you look at Russ and what he's done as like a one-man wrecking crew almost. But I mean, they haven't won like every single game with him doing that. So I don't know how good they would be with just Westbrook. So I don't think it's a good idea to trade Durant. Period. So yeah, Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, basically agree. The only way I would consider trading him is if he told management basically like I'm leaving, like there's nothing you can do to make me come back. So might as well try to get something for him while you can. I
Hmm.
don't think he particularly wants to leave. It sounds, from what I've heard, he's like a pretty big icon in the community, and he's all about giving back, and he's um, really been the building block from that franchise that was a bit of a mess, quite frankly, when they moved, and kind of turned them into like a perennial powerhouse at least. Obviously he's had help because he's had some great players along his side. But yeah, I would. I'm not exactly sure who this guy is that came up with these rumors. I don't know if he was trying to like just get some publicity or something like that. But I guess it has sparked quite an interesting discussion about it. But most of the NBA executives and things like that would immediately shoot it down and be like, that's that's not anything that's going to happen. And even if it did, it wouldn't happen very soon. So that's a guy that you can't really. You could maybe get like several first round picks and a great player back for him, but you can't really. It's just like LeBron. You can't trade for him and actually have it be remotely fair. You're gonna get like 50 cents on the dollar tops. So there's really no logical reason to trade him unless he literally comes up and says multiple times, "I'm leaving," and that's about how I stand on that. So
Yeah, I agree completely with you guys, and also like I think the day the rumor started circulating or whoever put it out there, um, that night I think the Thunder lost to the Clippers because the Clippers just like loaded up on Russell Westbrook's side of the court. And that's where like even though like he's going for triple doubles every game, it would have been nice to have Kevin Durant. So you don't ever trade someone like Kevin Durant like unless like you said, Kurt, he basically tells you he's leaving. Um, and I think it'll be hilarious if they trade Kevin Durant and then Russell Westbrook leaves and then they literally are down to nothing. But like seriously, like it's you got to consider that. So I think
yeah.
it's just I don't know who put it out there, but I think it's just dumb. So yep.
Actually, what you said was actually I think a really good point about what the Clippers did. In that when you think about who the players are for the Thunder outside of Westbrook, with Durant being out, you have Andre Roberson, who pretty much
Cannot
is
shoot.
like top Cephalosha who can't shoot,
Yeah.
basically there to play good defense, which not against how good he can be in like a like a game that means something like a playoff type game. Can he shut down like or not shut down, but at least like impact like a James Harden type player? I'm not sure about that. Then they have like Anthony Morrow, who's pretty much a spot up 3-point shooter, a good shooter, but he's not really doing anything on his own. Serge can, if he gets the ball, he can face up and hit jumpers. That's probably about it too. And then whoever they have at center, be it like probably usually Steven Adams, but he's got a wrist thing. He can't really, he's a pick and roll guy, and he finishes at the rim off pick and rolls or slip screens. So yeah, in reality, like they have a whole lot of nothing outside of Westbrook right now, as far as players that can actually like create shots on their own. So it'd be if I'm not exactly sure how much longer Durant's out for, but teams would be wise to see and implement that because Russ is still going to try to be the hero, things on his own, and that's how he ended up having double-digit turnovers, despite his ridiculous stats, not necessarily as efficient as he had been. So I just wanted to reiterate that as a good point to bring up, and
Yeah.
just really shows how important Durant is to that team. They can't really afford to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I guess with that and kind of going off KD and the free agency of 2016, I guess the league has been pretty active in talks. I guess last week we hit upon two possible changes, and it looks like another proposal that was kind of implemented was the National Basketball Players Association actually rejected a proposal regarding the salary cap that kind of would have smoothed the salary cap out so that in 2016 it wouldn't jump so significantly. So that has been rejected, and so the cap is now projected to jump. Currently, I think it's at around mid 60s, 60 million, and so next year it will jump a little bit, and then I think after that, it will jump to around 90 million is projected. So that is a significant jump. So I guess regarding this, I guess we can look forward a little bit and see, how do you, I guess Rahul, to start us off, how do you see this kind of impacting the teams in the NBA? Looking forward to 2016, how do you see maybe give a prediction of what the big signing will be and who? Where I guess Kevin Durant or one of the other big free agents will land, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, if the salary cap increases so much, I think the teams it helps most are kind of those big market teams. If you take a team like
Knicks, yeah.
Yeah, Lakers, Knicks, the Knicks, for example, kind of they've screwed up a lot in the past few years, but this is almost like a huge bailout for them, so it must be nice.
Yeah.
To be able to sign one or two top free agents after making moves like signing Andrea Bargnani, So it's going to help those teams a lot. And then those teams that win a lot, like San Antonio, they're not necessarily a big market, but they're going to be attractive places every single year. So now that they have money to spend, you could probably see an influx of free agents to San Antonio. As far as the biggest name or the biggest move, a lot of the top guys, like LeBron James or LaMarcus Aldridge, probably are going to stay put, I think. I think Marc Gasol could possibly go to San Antonio, but I'd still say that it's most likely that he stays in Memphis. The biggest name I'd say that has a good chance of moving then is maybe Goran Dragic to LA or DeAndre Jordan going somewhere. But as far as the top guys, I think they still stay put with their respective teams. Kurt, any big names you think are gonna move around?
There's nothing really that I can foresee that sounds pretty reasonable. I'm more interested in seeing how the salary dynamic is distributed, whereas I'm not exactly sure how if the maximum salary option is going to stay the same. Is a max deal? Is there still a cap on the max deal? As in I think
there is.
There will be. So
it's just a percentage of the max of the cap. It's a percentage of the cap, so it increases accordingly.
Yeah, so if you take LeBron for instance, he's making 22 million now, and I think with the new cap, his max salary could increase to 30 million, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, I mean, what Raul said with like the big markets. That's definitely gonna help a team like that. Just having like the Heat with Mickey as their owner. That guy's got several $billions, so he has no problem shelling out a little more for top players. But I think the players that are going to enjoy this the most are probably like your mid-level players, like a guy like Wesley Matthews maybe, who unfortunately obviously had the injury, but guys like that, instead of signing deals for like, $10 million a year, that's going to jump significantly. And those are guys that really aren't getting endorsement deals and things like that. So, for LeBron, if he gets like 20 million versus like 25, he's making probably that much on the side, just doing whatever he's doing, be it advertisements or business ventures or whatever like that. So I think it's, we've noticed that recently too. Just seemed like Eric Bledsoe getting like 15 million or 12 million a year, but like holding out and then getting offered a lot more money. Even like Tristan Thompson offered a huge salary and just not accepting it because, well, for one thing, he's maybe a little confused on his value. But when the salary cap rises like that, it's just an opportunity for so many guys to just make, maybe even double what they would have made. An extra $30 million to the cap. So then there'll be a lot more teams competing for free agents. Just seeing that obviously there'll be more money to throw around, but I think teams, you look at some teams that are very content on building assets and having salary cap room, and when you add more salary like that, I think teams will just be even better at salvaging assets and saving up so that they can sign. You're talking with the extra money. There's a potential that a team could have the ability to sign 3 max players and maybe another 4th player who makes like $10 million a year, like all in one off season. If you play things right. Whereas like the big thing for the Heat was getting LeBron, Bosh, and Wade all at once. And they had to take like a pay cut, and then that's pretty much all they had. They got some veterans to join, also on a discount. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure. I think a lot of the guys that aren't top stars are really going to enjoy it because they're going to make a lot more money than they would have otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so this whole salary, I guess, increase was due to there's like a $24 billion TV deal going down next season regarding, I think, ESPN and TNT. So just to give like context, like the largest salary jump before this was like $7 million from one year to the next. So this is like tripling it. So yeah, it definitely affords like those big market teams, like you guys said, to land some of these players that they possibly couldn't have before this. And it kind of opens it up this summer. It might get interesting, and you might see some of the free agents and some of the bigger names only accept like a 1-year deal because they want to just play 1 year and then get another bigger contract.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting as well. It just all shapes up to be like a big 2016 free agency period where you have free agents in obviously Durant, and then you have players like Joakim Noah, Al Horford, and Mike Conley whose contracts are up, and then you have guys that are obviously can opt in or opt out of their contract in the summer of 2016. So once that salary jump hits, the off season I think is just going to be crazy in terms of the money these guys are making, as well as some maybe how the power of like the NBA teams moves to maybe like those bigger market teams, because the owners there are willing and able to like dish out the cash for these bigger name free agents. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how the future of the NBA is positioned. And so I guess going off that, we'll go back, I guess, more to focus on some of these other teams and kind of who's hot and who's not. So going to the East, I guess, to start off, we look at the Indiana Pacers, and they have just been a transformed team since the All-Star break and the return of George Hill. They are currently on a 7-game winning streak, and yeah, they're just really playing well in the last few weeks or so. So, Kurt, I guess a question with this is, do you think they could possibly snag the 6th seed from the Bucks now? I think they're maybe like 3.5 games back now. So, do you see Indiana possibly moving up to the 6th?
Yeah, actually, I definitely do. Not only is Indiana playing very well, as you said, won 9 of their last 10, but Milwaukee actually is not doing well themselves. So that's a good combo. They're 3-7 in their last 10. So when you look at that, if that trend keeps up, even at all, they're going to pass Milwaukee very quickly. And honestly, if the way Toronto's been playing, it's possible they could pass them too. I know they're 8 games back now, which is a lot. There's only 18 games left for Indiana, but slide. It could be interesting. I mean, they kind of end up as the 5 seed, which would be pretty crazy considering where they were pre-All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
But the most interesting thing to me, I guess, is that George Hill was the catalyst for this team's rejuvenation. When I think about top point guards in the league, I would never, and then this is no disservice to him, but I would his name would there would be at least 10 other players, probably more like 15 players that I would think of before I thought of his name.
Like Mario Chalmers.
I guess he yeah, Mario Chalmers and my boy Norris Cole.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what's most fascinating to me is that just adding him back has made such a big difference. I mean, unfortunately, the Cavs don't play Indiana make George Hill look like the best point guard and one of the best players in the league, and he just goes off on us. But that's a scary team, and I really hope that they move up so the Cavs avoid them in the first round. So.
Yeah. I think, like you said, we don't want to play them in the first round. I'm sure they don't want to play us in the first round either. So they're not going to take their foot off the pedal. And I think Indiana, oh man, this is tough. I think they are a little bit better than Milwaukee. And just with the way things are trending and knowing that they have kind of this huge weapon in Paul George that could come back at any point, they're going to really push to not play Atlanta or Cleveland in the first round, because if you get to 6 or something like that, the way that Toronto has been playing and Chicago's kind of struggle, those are possible upsets that could happen with Indiana. So I do see them passing Milwaukee because 3.5 games in the East, teams in the East lose 3.5 games every 4 days. It's not hard in the East to make up 3.5 games. So I would go ahead and bet on Indiana being the 6th seed. I think they're a little too far behind Washington right now to overtake them, but we'll see. J-Rod, what do you think, Indiana or Milwaukee?
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think Indiana will end up as the 6th seed, and the Cavs will be thankful for that. I think much rather play Milwaukee than Indiana for sure. Yeah, I mean, you look at the Pacers' success in these past few weeks, and it's been led by their defense primarily. They're holding opponents to 96.1 points per game in the past few weeks, which is the 3rd best in the league, and I think it's also been fueled, you mentioned George Hill, but it's also been fueled by the play of Rodney Stuckey actually in these last few
yeah.
He's actually moved. He was a starter, but they moved him to the bench, and he's actually off the bench averaging about 20 points per game on 50% shooting in the last 10 games. So his
Wow.
play has really propelled their bench and kind of led their scoring there. And then you look at their, the next few games, and they actually have the opportunity to possibly extend this win streak to double digits. I think they play like Orlando and Boston and one or a few others before they face off with the Cavs in this next
Play the
week.
Raptors.
Yeah, yeah, and speaking of the Raptors, I guess we want to go into them. They're kind of on the different path than the Pacers recently. They've really been struggling. I think they're 2-8 in the last 10, and yeah, they just have not been playing good basketball since the All-Star break. So, I guess Kurt, do you think with these Raptors struggles, they're now falling down to I think the three or four
They're
seed, and
3 seed.
Or
yeah. So, given their struggles and everything, do you think, despite them still being in the top, few seeds in the East, do you think they'll still win their first playoff series? And I guess going along with, other struggling teams in the league, do you think that they're like in the most trouble, you would say?
yeah, this has been one of the more interesting teams to follow this year. Now they started off the season 13-2, and at one point they were 37-17, and since then now they're 39-26. So I don't know if Drake's not doing a good enough job cheerleading or what it is, but I'm if I was Toronto, I would probably say that I would be at about an 8 on the worry scale. They can't, they started off the season ridiculously well, and just the way they've been playing recently, they don't deserve to be anywhere near the playoffs. But the beginning of the season was strong enough that in this conference, they'll be completely fine. But yeah, of all the teams, I would say I'd be most worried about them. Washington, they've finally started doing a little better. They won 2 in a row. And Indiana obviously is charging too, but again, that's another 8 games back of Toronto right now. But I'd be seriously concerned. I mean, they started off the season ridiculously well. We're even the 1 seed for a little while, and things just haven't really worked out very well for them. And they could, if they end up as the 4 seed against Washington, if they get the host still, I think that's the only way that they could win, maybe, just because of the home field advantage. But if they drop a spot and are on the road for the first series, I think they have no chance of winning. Last season, it seemed like it was kind of out of nowhere that they did well, and this year they were supposed to do well, and they did for a while. But they don't have that go-to guy. I think that when you look, and I guess neither does Atlanta, but they don't play like Atlanta. They don't pass the cut and get open shots and give up a good shot for a great shot. And I don't think that you can win a playoff series off of DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. Again, no offense to them, but they're just not. They don't have that much experience in the playoffs collectively, the team, and I just don't think they have enough firepower. And I think assuming Washington, given that they have Paul Pierce and John Wall and Bradley Beal, I think Washington is just much better than they are. So the way that it's looking at now, I think if it was how it was now, and Toronto's playing host to Washington for 7 games, I think it would go to 7.
Right now,
I'm not exactly sure who would win the last.
I think right now it's Toronto, Milwaukee.
Yeah, 3-6.
Okay. I guess what I'm looking at isn't very updated then. But yeah, okay, well, yeah, if they're playing Milwaukee, since they traded
Brandon Knight.
I think doesn't seem like that move has really helped them terribly much. But they still have a bunch of injury issues. But yeah, I think it's a total toss-up if they win the first round, but they're not going to win past the first round, so I'm not. I don't have a lot of faith in Toronto. I guess is what I'd come down to. And so, with that being said, I would say that I would be most worried about them. And as far as teams that are trending downward,
Yeah. Um, I think that Toronto wins their first round. Um, just because you guys remember like last year watching Toronto, like their playoff atmosphere is just it's nasty,
Yeah.
and like they got Drake, and they're Canadian, and they just love their basketball, and I don't know, like that can really like that's a good way to get a team out of a slump is that just a high energy atmosphere, and I think the playoffs kind of snap you out of things in a lot of ways like that. And I do think that Kyle Lowry can be a go-to guy. I think he's a little bit underrated. Um, but yeah, I agree, Kurt, with your point that even if they win their first round, it's not like they're going to do anything after that. Um, and I was just sitting here thinking Kevin Love would be a cool fit for Toronto. They don't have like a great power forward. They have
Yeah.
what's his name, Amir Johnson. Kevin Love would be a great fit for that team. Hopefully, he's not listening and decides to go to Toronto. But yeah, I'd say they're one round and then done. J-Rod?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the Raptors this year, it's been a product of Kyle Lowry has kind of taken on a lot of offensive burn and kind of carrying the offense with DeMar DeRozan being out for most of the year. So, and then they're also just not a good rebounding team. And you look at last year and they played very well. They're actually top 10 in offense and defense in the league last year, but this year it just seems that their starting five is just when you look at the top teams in the East, I don't think their starting five is as powerful and as talented as the others in the East. Especially in the front court, like you said, their power forward and Valanciunas has gotten better, but he's still not a great center, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I see. Yeah, if it stands pat, they beat the Bucks in a series. I think first round, but I think if they play the Zards, I think that series
The
could go to
Zards.
7 or so, and they could possibly lose that one. So yeah, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, the Raptors are really struggling. It seems.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Right now, Miami's a half game out of the playoffs. They're a half game behind Charlotte.
Mm.
If you guys had to pick one of those teams to make the playoffs, do you pick Miami or Charlotte, and why?
I think if I had to pick, I'd pick Boston. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go outside
Oh
the
yeah,
box here.
Boston too. My
And
bad.
yeah, they're only actually one game out themselves.
Yeah.
Brooklyn was in this. Yeah, they were in the playoffs for a long time. They kind of lost. They lost 5 in a row. They kind of just
Yeah.
been laying eggs everywhere they go, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Charlotte is interesting. The only issue is that they've been missing Kemba a decent amount, and then Al Jefferson's hurt as well. So it just seems like things aren't really. They just can't seem to stay healthy. I know they're playing well. Miami, just they don't. They honestly look at project. They're very just, and I don't know. I feel like there's like a lot of life that's been sucked out of that team. At first they lost LeBron, and they thought they could make a run, and things didn't really pan out very well. And then they lose probably, no offense to Wade, but probably their most important player in Bosch, as far as like a guy that can space the floor, get you 20 and 10 every night. And then they find Hassan Watt, and that's like right after they find, or right before they find Hassan Whiteside, who ended up being like this just complete gem that came out of nowhere. Then things started looking good for them again. They lose Bosch, and they get Dragic. Just been a lot of ups and downs. Like a pretty emotional year for that team, including Michael Beasley being on the team several times. But they're realistically just not very talented. And when it comes down to it, if they somehow do make the playoffs, they're not going anywhere. All they do is run pick and roll pretty much, and they don't really have the weapons that they used to. So I just can't see Miami making the playoffs. They just aren't very good, and I don't know. I can't see it happening. Boston's kind of just came out of nowhere. It seemed like they were trying to tank this season, and then all of a sudden at the trade deadline they were like, oh, we're going to pick Isaiah Thomas. They won 3 in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10. There's like a bunch of young, scrappy guys that are inspired by their coach to play really hard every night. And things are finally kind of turning around for them, and that they're playing well and they're playing hard, and that's I guess in the East that's good enough. There's certainly some teams that are disinterested. So, not to ignore your options, but I think I'd pick Boston out of the 3 teams. I think they just have the most hunger to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Kurt too. Actually, looking at it, yeah, I look at Boston, and I think they do have the potential to be the 8 seed the most. I think, and then I would go Charlotte, and then I would go Miami, kind of like Kurt, in terms of like ranking them. Yeah, Boston's just they're trending upward, and yeah, Miami has kind of struggled, and I don't think Dwayne Wade and whoever else is scoring for that team can lead them in this last stretch. I think Wade is probably fatigued, and he'll get burnt out by the end of the season, I think. So yeah, Boston's full of young guys that have the will to win and everything. So yeah, I look at Boston as the 8 seed in the East. What do you think, Rahul?
Yeah, I honestly just completely forgot about Boston. They're one of those sneaky teams with Isaiah Thomas, and then of course those Ohio State guys with Solinger and Turner. So yeah, I didn't really consider Boston. I'd still put my money on Charlotte, I'd say, because they're gonna get Kemba back real soon here, and I don't think Al Jefferson's injury was as serious as they thought, was it? I think he's
his
coming
MRI
back.
negative.
Yeah, so if they get those 2 back, I still think that they are the team, the favorite for that last spot. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think any of them can contend, so maybe this is just kind of a moot point, but as in contend with Atlanta in the first series. So we'll see. Kurt, you mentioned, and I guess I just mentioned too, these guys, Kemba is hurt, Al Jefferson coming back. A lot of guys around the league now are starting to come back after a slew of injuries. Dwight Howard is going to make his way back, I think, in the next few weeks. Paul George might be a little further away, but with the way Indiana's going, he could be coming back. Durant's week to 2 weeks away, and then Griffin's also coming back pretty soon. So the question I want to pose to you guys is, out of all of these guys that are returning to their teams, which guy is most important to his respective team? Kurt, I'll start it off with asking you.
Well, that's a good question, and also a tough one. Those are obviously 5 players that are, no, those are guys that you want to go to war with any day. So I guess I'll start by trying to, look at the list and eliminate players. The Clippers have honestly been playing very, very well without Blake. Mainly, I'd say thanks to DeAndre Jordan, who's just been, I can't remember the exact stats, but I want to say he's averaging something like 15 and 18 rebounds since Blake's gone out. Just ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure it's something along those lines. And they're still, I remember we talked about them. We're pretty concerned when they went down. They're still sitting at the 5 seed, so things are obviously going well. But basically, just looking off standings, Houston hasn't dropped, so apparently Dwight's, not that important for them right now. And with that being said, my conclusion has to be Kevin Durant. That would be mainly because right now, New Orleans and Oklahoma City have the same record, but New Orleans has, I believe it's a better conference record. That's the first tiebreaker. So they're actually in the 8 seed right now. So I think that it has to be Durant, just based on, Indiana's won 7 in a row, so obviously Paul George helps a lot because he's, an elite player. But they seem to be doing fine without him for now. So yeah, I'd have to say Durant. Just Oklahoma City is not in the playoff picture right now, and there's not that many games left, so It'll be interesting to see. New Orleans has really just turned it on completely, so
Yeah.
Oklahoma City needs to keep up with them, and I think Durant's probably their best way of doing that.
Yeah, I would agree too that Durant is probably the most important out of these players that are returning from injury. Yeah, you look at the Pellies and you're not like a lot of people counted them out after the Thunder went on that run a little bit and started winning and everything, but they've kind of stayed around and they're currently in the 8th seed. So yeah, it's going to be tough once the Thunder get KD back. How if Russell kind of defers to him more, or like how that works, or who gets how many shots each night and stuff. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think he's just too talented out of all the other players, and he's too important to their team. I also look at Blake Griffin as a key addition, just in terms of like playoffs. And when it comes down to playoffs, it's all about the matchups. So if the Clippers are trotting out like Spencer Hawes and Glenn Davis is playing big minutes for them in the playoffs, I think they're just going to get destroyed down low, and a smart
Yeah.
team would just pound it down low with that and try to get DeAndre into foul trouble, and then they're pretty much screwed. So come playoff time, I think Blake Griffin's also pretty important, but obviously not as important as Durant. But yeah, it's interesting that there's so many different kind of like star players that have battled with injuries this year and everything. Um, so yeah, do we want to
Well, you were
transition?
just talking about
Yeah.
you're just talking about star players. So I think an obvious transition would be to bring up Amare Stoudemire,
Ah,
um,
yeah.
who who has been reported for calling out his teammates. Basically, I guess the gist of the story is that Amare came to Dallas to be the savior, um, which apparently isn't working out as well as he thought. So I don't know, Johnny. Do you have any quick thoughts on that? We don't need to go too into discussion on this, but does Amare have the resume that allows him to kind of call teammates out for things like that, or
Uh, yeah, just briefly, I guess. Yeah, it is a little interesting. He got bought out by the Knicks, and then he kind of joined the Mavs, just to basically win and give himself the best chance to kind of get a ring before his time is done in the NBA, I think. But yeah, it is interesting that he's kind of outspoken in this, and I don't think he really has the resume. I mean, he has been in the league for a while, but I mean, he just yeah, he's battled his ring of injuries and everything, and he just really hasn't played up to his potential. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know if Mark Cuban has like a response to this or anything. He's kind of outspoken himself, the owner.
yeah,
So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how the Mavs, I guess, respond to this comment. And actually, last night they played pretty well after getting blown out by the Cavs. So. Yeah, I think it'll just be interesting to see how the Mavs kind of play this rest of the season and see how they do in the playoffs and everything. So, yeah, Rahul, what do you think?
um, yeah. So obviously, like Amari isn't what he used to be, and it's a little bit awkward that he's calling people out. But I think Tyson Chandler said he supported Amari's kind of like words to call people out. And if you think about like the best players on that team, like you got Dirk and Monta, do you guys see like those guys being vocal about this and calling their teammates out? Because they don't strike me as those kinds of guys. Like
no,
so in that way, I don't have a problem with what Amari's doing. Um, I don't know, like I don't think it's a huge deal, So um, yeah, Kurt, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but feel free.
I just think it was a little out of place, and maybe he thinks a little more of himself. Obviously he was very very good with Steve Nash for several years in Phoenix.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's really just not been able to be healthy enough, and I would think that in that locker room he would be behind Dirk, Monta, Tyson, probably Parsons. I don't think he's even one of the, he shouldn't be one of the more, he's not supposed to be like a vocal leader for the team. He's kind of just supposed to fill in and play solid minutes, maybe 15 to 20 minutes a game as a post player. So I think it was very out of place. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. Maybe he's frustrated with how he's been playing or with his lack of minutes or something, and that's kind of how he took it out on. But, yeah, I think it was pretty unnecessary.
Yeah, so I guess to wrap things up here, we've been kind of going at this for a while. We're just gonna I guess highlight, we've highlighted a lot of good things happening around the NBA, but we're kind of nearing the end of the season now, kind of on the final stretch of, the last 15 or so games. And we just wanted to take the time now to kind of recognize the other guys in the league that have stood out in their own way, I guess you could say. So position by position, we're each of us are just gonna kind of give our starting five of like the worst team in the NBA that we could think of the starters currently in the NBA and their recent play this year especially. So I guess to start us off, Rahul, if you want to give us your starting five, just kind of run down,
Yeah,
give some highlights from them or whatever.
I can definitely do that. Let's see. Point guard, I have Dante Exum. He's currently rocking a 7 PER, which is pretty terrible. What's the average in the league? Is it like 15 or so?
15. Yeah.
Yeah, so
15.
he's a couple standard deviations below that. And then Trey Burke is doing all right for them, but that tandem isn't doing so great. I would have given it to the old Miami three-headed monster at point guard, but now they have Dragic, so I went with Exum. Shooting guard, I went with Joe Ingles, who's also with Utah. He has a stat line of 4.4 points a game and a PER of 9.46. At small forward, I have Jakar Sampson, who's actually from Cleveland. He plays for Philadelphia. 4.8 points a game, 2 boards, and 0.9 assists. He's got a PER of 9.53, and those stats are for a team that's terrible, which usually means your stats are inflated. So there's that. Power forward, I struggled with this one. Like, there's guys like Adrian Payne. Adrian Payne currently has a PER of 7, which is terrible. He plays for Minnesota. His numbers are pretty crappy, but he's young. So I'm gonna go with an old friend for point guard. I'm gonna say Lou Amundsen.
Yes, Louis.
He's got 4.8 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, and 0.8 assists, which is terrible. But they're also higher than his career averages, so that's impressive. And then center, it's probably the most obvious position. There's only one choice for this, in my opinion. And it's sad that he's starting because he's a great cheerleader. But Robert Sacre is just, oh man, poor guy shouldn't be starting. I don't know if he'd even start anymore. But yeah, that's my 5.
Nice.
J-Rod, what do you got, man?
Yeah, so a few repeats within my list, but these guys kind of stand out on their own, and I guess going at the point guard position, Dante Exum. I think he's the worst in the league in terms of like estimated win shares of like -3. So that's bad. He's averaging like 5 points a game and like 35% shooting. So he's got it all. And you go to the shooting guard percentage, and probably I would say like the worst signing of the summer was Lance Stevenson, and with the Hornets. And he's at a 15% three-point shooting percentage, which is god awful. And Yeah, I mean, despite them, they still might make the playoffs. But imagine if he would play at like the level that he would with the Pacers. And then you look at the small forward position, and Kyle Singler, who was recently traded, I guess, to OKC. He's been laying steamers. Yeah, he's not doing well. And then power forward, we go to Sacramento. And actually, I read that this player is actually like the longest tenured king, like actively or something, and that is Jason Thompson, who averages like 5 and 6, and he starts and plays like significant minutes, which is pretty tough to do. And then we gotta finally ring it up with our center, Bobby Sacre the third.
Is he
He's
the
like
third?
averaging like 4 and 3 with like 30%. So he's the man, but I mean he's got to be
40
on the list. So
40% for a big is ridiculous.
yeah, that is very
That's
bad. Yeah,
very
especially center. Like you should not be like anywhere close to low 40s, but he is. So good job, Bobby. Kurt. So yeah, give us your starting five.
All right. Well, in honor of the Michigan Fab Five, I've elected to name my team the Drab Five.
Nice.
Very
It's,
nice.
leading us off. Unfortunately, I'm trying to kind of picking on the younger players here, which isn't to say that they aren't going to grow into good players, but they're just having tough seasons. So I'll start with Marcus Smart, at point guard from the Celtics. He's shooting under 36% from the field. About 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, which isn't really that bad, but the whole shooting under 36% from the field is that's pretty terrible. Then we're going to move into a guy that we touched on earlier, which is Andre Roberson from the Thunder, who is basically not able to shoot the ball at all. He's a 25% shooter. In that respect, he makes Lance Stevenson look even worse, which is interesting. But basically, he poses no offensive threat, and he has his PER is 9.7, and he's adding an estimated negative 0.3 wins to his team season.
Yes.
So Oklahoma City, if you're listening, I think my estimated wins added would be not negative. So if you want to upgrade, I'll be listening.
Man, what's that say for like Perry Jones and Jeremy Lamb just chilling on the bench?
Yeah, they get absolutely no love, and I remember when they picked Perry Jones, and I think he was like 28th or 30th. He was like one of the end of the first round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was stoked because when he played with Baylor, he was a stud, and he's just an interesting size combination. And then he just never ever ended up playing for that team at all. So I don't know. He probably could have been a pretty good player if he got a chance, but maybe they'll trade him like they did with Reggie. But yeah, I guess moving on. Another young guy from my favorite Wichita State Shockers, Clanthony Early. He hasn't started a whole lot of games for the Knicks, but his true shooting percentage is under 40%.
That's bad.
To put that in perspective, like anything worse than 50 is not very good because basically it factors in free throw shooting, which most guys, aside from like DeAndre Jordan, are somewhere at least around 70. So yeah, that was by far the worst in the league. His shooting percentage, true shooting percentage, I should say. His PER is less than 7, so that's just overall kind of a deadly combo. This isn't as up to date as I'd like it to be, but going into before this week started, I should say, he had 34 points in 154 minutes of starting on 11 of 49 shooting, which for those of you that aren't great with math, that's under 25%. Just to be safe, because I'm not sure exactly what it is, but not very good. Then power forward, I thought this was a pretty obvious choice, but you guys picked good ones too. My boy Ryan Kelly from the Lakers, Duke product. He actually is shooting an astounding 30.6% from the field.
Oh.
With 5 points per game and 3 rebounds. He's 6'11", and he has 3 rebounds. And he's playing alongside Bobby Sacre. So between
That is the worst
Ryan
front
Kelly-
court in the NBA.
Oh yeah, but okay, listen to this. So Bobby has 3.4 rebounds per game, and Ryan Kelly has 2.8. For two guys that are 6'11" and like 7 foot, I don't know how that. But yeah, his PER is just a shade under 6.5. And then of course, just as you said, to top it off, definitely, like Johnny said, the worst front court in the league, and it's not even remotely close. Bobby Sacre at center, as I said, 4.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 41% for a center, which is just pretty atrocious considering where he shoots the ball from. So, yeah, it's a pretty doozy of a team, but I would not want any of those guys on my roster at this point in their careers. So, I think we did pretty well with that, guys. I think we found some pretty excellent choices, and I'm glad to say that none of them are on the Cavs. So
some gems, yeah.
Yeah, that always helps. Now, if Dellavedova was starting, I think we'd have another case for point guard. But,
Oh yeah.
I don't think we have to worry about that. Knock on wood, Kyrie, don't get hurt, or I'll cry. So.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty good as far as this past week goes, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything you guys want to add? Any shout-outs?
I already gave my shout out for the trillion earlier, so that's actually the double trillion that we had, and almost a triple trillion. I want to say there's somebody I had to give a shout out to, but I can't remember who it is. So unless it comes to me at the last second, I think somebody recorded a trillion that didn't even play a single minute. Oh yeah, Corey Joseph, of course.
Oh yeah.
And just in the game on Thursday, he didn't end up rounding up. He didn't end up logging 1 minute, and he had the trillion. So that's in an overtime game even that he didn't get to play a full minute. So that would be my shout out. I would say Corey Joseph, keep it up.
All right. Fair enough. Well, I think that covers it for us this week. We'll be back next week with another podcast, and we'll have some articles somewhere in between. So, all right, yeah, thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you soon.